Hello and welcome to some more menopause chat. I'm here with Dr. Sam Brown and Dr. Fiona McCarthy, who are from the Bronte Clinic in London. I love the fact it's called the Bronte Clinic. It's just really nice to talk to women who want to help other women going through the biggest picture we can say of the word menopause, because it includes perimenopausal, postmenopausal, everything. But the whole shebang, when our hormones start to change, we start to not feel ourselves, and that's the only way I can put it down to. So I think what might be helpful, because you come from very different backgrounds, so you trained as a doctor, and
Yes.
when did you then, as a doctor...
So I'm a GP,
You're a
most
GP.
of my week I'm still...
Oh, you are,
NHS
you wear GP hat, yeah.
But I think as a female GP you get female patients, and then you go through their problems with them. So I was going through contraceptive problems, menstrual problems, had my children, and my patients were getting older with me, and then in my 40s I started to get symptoms. They were having symptoms and I really wanted to be able to help them.
And Fiona, you come from a background of oncology, so that's a different slant to it, because you're, what do you specialise in?
So I used to specialise in colorectal cancer,
Mm-hmm.
and I've treated breast cancer and ovarian cancer as well. But in my private practice I have an aesthetic practice, and what I was finding is that women were coming in, and as part of my kind of skin consultation, I was asking people about their hormones, because it has such an impact on your skin.
Let's just start with you, Dr. Sam. Is the beginning of menopause when your period stops?
That is a good question. I think that's when women think that the beginning of their menopause is, and it's probably when our mothers think that they went through the menopause. But the perimenopause, so in terms of symptoms, can start 4 to 7 years on average before your last period. So technically your menopause is a year after your last period, but the symptoms can be many years. So most women in their 40s are getting far more symptoms than they might do in their 50s.
What are the things that are a checklist that you think every woman should think about if they're feeling out of sorts themselves and it could be menopause?
So I think looking at mood would be the commonest thing that I see with women. And sometimes it's very insidious, so because your hormones are fluctuating, it might be on 1 week or 1 day that you lose confidence at work, or you can't do the presentation, but then the next day is fine. You might find that you're struggling with sleep. You might lose confidence to do things like driving is really common, but I don't think we talk about that as much. So I think it's making sure women are aware of those mood changes early, in their early 40s, so that when they happen they don't think that they necessarily need antidepressants, or that they need to leave their job or leave their husband, and all of these things we see happening if women are not aware.
In treating, we know there's HRT. Do you want to just break it down, so somebody watching this for the first time?
So HRT is hormone replacement therapy. It's replacing what your body's not producing naturally, which is estrogen, and estrogen is what will make you feel better. Joint pains, mood swings, hot flashes, and you can replace that with gel or patches or spray, which is very safe given through the skin. Doesn't increase your risk of blood clots. You can take it if you've had heart attacks, high blood pressure, migraines. Progesterone you take by mouth, which, as we were talking earlier, can really help with sleep. So you would take that, if you're still having periods, take it for 2 weeks of the month, and if you're not having periods, take it every day. And some women do benefit from testosterone as well, which is usually introduced at a later.
I think we could just myth bust some things, because I think there'll be women who will be watching this later, and they'll be thinking, HRT, cancer, I shouldn't do it. I read it in the Daily Mail 10 years ago. And so therefore I'm not doing it. And I know women who will say, you know, about that. So I just want to ask you, if you are a woman and you've had breast cancer, is it definitely in your mind a no, that you can't do any hormone replacement, or are there other avenues you can take?
I think as an oncologist and with an interest in menopause, I think it's not a definite no. It depends on what kind of breast cancer you've had. I think the headlines were very, they were headlines to grab attention. They weren't actually the reality. And if you look at there was a huge meta-analysis done and was published 2 years ago, and it looked at 500,000 women. And it looked at the effect of HRT on your risk profile. And actually, being obese, so with a BMI over 25, added more risk when we're on HRT than any previous history of cancer. You are going to increase your risk of cancer by taking HRT a little bit, okay? Just a small bit. But if you're obese, if you're smoking, if you're and if you're doing those things, you're much more likely to get cancer. And actually, you have to be. It's all about a risk-benefit balance. There's nothing perfect in life. HRT does increase risks slightly, But the
How does it
benefit,
reduce risk slightly?
because it's based on your estrogen, and some cancers, breast cancer in particular, is a lot of them are estrogen driven.
Yeah.
But if you look at the risks in terms of not having HRT and your cardiovascular risk later in
Yeah.
life, or your risk of osteoporosis, the risks I think definitely are far outweighed by the benefits of HRT.
Yeah.
And I think drinking alcohol as well would
Drinking
outweigh
alcohol, yes,
the
exactly.
risks of.
Should we just talk
without
about
talking-
alcohol and a woman who is perimenopausal? Because I think it's something that in Great Britain, we are, as a nation, we like a glass of wine,
Yeah.
maybe more than Europe and maybe more than America. So how much do you think that there's a sort of vicious cycle going on of, and especially also because we had 2 years of a lockdown and you had a lot more people drinking at home, I think, and feeling low anyway. So have you found when you're talking to patients and new patients who maybe you've picked up during COVID and things, that to be able to navigate through that and
Yes.
understand?
I think it's another question that has to be asked, doesn't it? Because often if people are not sleeping, or they're anxious, or they're losing their confidence, or they're feeling rubbish, then they can self-medicate with wine, which then leads to a vicious cycle of them not sleeping and feeling anxious and feeling a bit rubbish, and then they drink again the next day. So I think it's really important to ask how much they're drinking, when they're drinking, what they're drinking, and what impact they think that's having, because they may not have put 2 and 2 together. They may be thinking it's more of a help than a hindrance, but it almost always is more of a hindrance, especially at this age. And I was just saying to you this morning, wasn't I? I don't think I'm going to drink wine.
Is it ever too late to start taking HRT? I like this question because everyone answers this question differently.
I really like this question. So I think there was a generation of women that were let down in the early 2000s in terms of access to HRT.
Yeah, because after the scares.
After the study, I mean, that's when I started being a GP, and we just didn't prescribe it. I wasn't seeing women ask for it. Hardly ever. We didn't prescribe it. If we did, we were very nervous too, and we had to share risks, and then we'd put them off even if they'd come for it. So I think there are definitely women in their 60s and 70s who are still struggling with symptoms, hot flushes, joint pains. We may have treated them for all different kinds of things, and all of these things are due to their hormone deficiency. So I think it's a very individual decision, and I think you need a bit of time with that person to work out what the symptoms are. Have we excluded other things? What do they understand by HRT? What do they want to do? What alternative things have they tried? Because after 10 years after your last period, then you start to get into a little bit more of a higher risk versus benefit situation. But that's, for a lot of women, the benefits will outweigh the risks, and they'll feel better. And the osteoporosis risk, which you talked about, is huge in women. It costs the NHS, millions of pounds if you fracture a hip. The cardiovascular risk, so all of the benefits of HRT, I think a lot more women can benefit from.
How do you feel today about how long you can be on it?
Yeah, so I think there are still GPs who would say 5 years and then reduce and stop and see how you feel. I think.
But why is that? When I hear that, it's like, to me, I'm sorry, that's so well, you can have this little treat for 5 years and then I'm going to take it off you. And I just don't think it was based on a huge knowledge, apart from those initial studies, which were then not corroborated years on, and the one you said done about 3 years ago, which was many more women and far more in depth. But I just find it very frustrating.
It is frustrating, and I think one of the other frustrating things is there isn't enough research done into the long-term benefits, which I think we will get in terms of reducing risk of dementia. We'll be able to give figures and numbers on the reduction of exactly what your reduction in cardiovascular risk is, and other long-term effects.
I think that's one of the biggest benefits to HRT, if at all. In my mother's family, there's a bit of heart disease, and I feel the ability for my vascular system to be in a better state and to have less chance of dying from vascular disease.
And also, so I was going to say, heart disease is the biggest killer of women in the UK. It's not cancer. It's not. It's heart disease. And actually, yes, we have the headlines where HRT can increase your risk of cancer, but HRT reduces your risk of dying of a heart attack or a stroke. So you have to look at the bigger picture.
I found I'd done treatments for so long, and during COVID, we all became lazy about it. And I just all my prescriptions ran out, and I thought, oh, it's all right, I'm fine. It would have been 5 years after the doctor would have said, you've done 5 years, now get off it, all right? But I came off it, and I found I came off in June, and by September I was walking up a hill in Scotland,
Mm.
and I was in so much pain when I came down, and my joints hurt so much. And that evening I was lying on my bed, and I felt in agony for my joints. I thought, what is this? I literally thought I had some awful thing.
Yeah.
And then I called up my doctor, and they were like, don't know what to do. And then I happened to call my manager. She went, you idiot, you came off and you didn't bother to renew. What are you doing? Do you think, really, you don't think everything is going to come rushing back at you? And I didn't realise how bad it was.
I think I've had more than one woman describe it as walking through a treacle.
Yeah.
And it feels like everything is a bit heavy and everything is a bit of an effort. If you try and run, it's just impossible.
Yeah.
And joint pains, the brain fog as well, I think
Brain
makes a huge
fog.
difference.
Yeah.
If you have been struggling for your words and struggling to think or putting things in the fridge, and then that's not happening as much.
Yes.
So what advice do you give to a woman who might have seen somebody at their local practitioner who's not being that helpful in helping them think, am I in perimenopausal state, or I really want help and I'm not being offered any help? How can they be equipped to get help?
I think it is about education, isn't it? Which you're doing with so many different books out there, following people on Instagram. I think it's going to your doctor with a questionnaire of symptoms and showing them just how much, all the different symptoms you're suffering from and the severity of them. And I think getting women to a point where they recognise that early so that they can go and get help and discuss the different options with their doctor.
And coming from a place of knowledge, because I think sometimes when
exactly.
we can be blinded by science when we go to a GP and we think there's such a classic doctor-patient concept, especially if a woman is slightly older, just like that. So to actually say, well, this is what I found out, and and a lot of doctors must find it very difficult when you have what I would call Google patients. It's like, I think I've got this because I Googled these 90 things and it's come back to this. So there is a balance there.
But I think you know your own body, and there's something about trusting your gut instinct, and if there's something wrong.
Yeah.
And I think it's advocating for yourself, but that's very difficult in 10 minutes necessarily when you have a limited appointment time with your GP. I think that's a real challenge for women today.
Yeah. So really maybe to just get further advice, even if one has a private appointment and just has one appointment to get the knowledge, and then maybe go back to a GP.
Exactly. It might be done over a few appointments, and I think
because you do that a little bit with some of your patients, don't you?
In the NHS it's often an appointment, an assessment, share information, come back, decide what to do, arrange further tests if they need to. But I think now the conversations are happening more often. I think it's often from friends suggesting symptoms or talking about symptoms. Gets people talking and asking for help, doesn't it?
Yeah.
When we are perimenopausal, what do you think happens to many women around sex drive?
It reduces, doesn't it? And often around perimenopause, you've been with your partner for a long
You might
time.
be with
A lot
them
of
for a long time,
And I think that can happen in a long-term relationship anyway. But so many women come to me and say, if I ask the question, I think as doctors you have to be really good at asking the question, because I don't think women necessarily say that their libido's gone, but when you ask the question, often it's, oh no, I haven't thought about that for years. It's not an issue. I don't really care. So I think that's really common, it's something that we should talk about more.
And we don't discuss it more.
No.
I think that's the thing, isn't it?
And I think it's difficult in terms of when if you are in the stage where you're with somebody you've been with a long time, and already that sort of excitement of having sex with them has waned, plus you're going through perimenopausal symptoms, and then it's sort of the last thing on your list. And there is something that I have this woman I was telling you about earlier, Dr. Erica, who I talked to. Dr. Erica really, during COVID, got everyone's back up, because she said, if you're not having sex with your husband, somebody else is. Okay, like she was really, because she does like a kick up the arse. Own your sexuality and feel, can I get you into a state where you want to be still fully what it is to be a woman? So it is something that I think I had that low moment when I felt just, I was starting to go when I was somebody I've been with for many, many years. And it does have the effect. Those two things compound. How do you feel about, because I'm asked this a lot and I never actually know how to answer. So, in the workplace, when women have symptoms, and I never actually had huge flushes. I just had other symptoms. So when you have that, and you have a lot of flushing, and you feel as a woman embarrassed, and you and I, we've all spoken to many women, so I feel embarrassed and I'm just at a meeting and suddenly I'm drenched in sweat and you know, or I feel really emotional, I want to have an outburst. I want to ask what advice you give to women, because I don't know if we would give the same advice. So I'm really interested in what you would say to a patient in that situation, because we have lots of women who we've been on live, so that's exactly what they've asked.
Yeah, it's a really common problem, isn't it? And I think there is embarrassment. I think if we talk about menopause more and perimenopausal symptoms, and men are aware and younger people are aware, and we're talking about it in our families, you know, my husband and kids are sick of me talking about it, so I think if other people are aware of what's going on, then it hopefully becomes less of an embarrassment and less of an issue. And when you don't have that, you know, if you're having a hot flush and you get that rush of adrenaline and you're self-conscious about it, it tends to make the hot flush worse. As in any, you know, anxiety situation,
negative feedback,
negative feedback.
Yeah.
So I think being able to ride it out, know that it's normal.
I don't think we're there yet. I think I would love it to be at a stage where women can say, look, I'm really sorry, I'm having a hot flush, I'll be fine in a minute, and people not to judge them for it and know that it's not going to be impact on people's opinion of them negatively. I see in our clinic, we see a lot of very professional women who can't say in a boardroom, or in, you know, a lot of our patients are lawyers, for example, they don't feel they can turn around and say, actually I'm having a hot flush, because they think that they'll be judged negatively for it, and it'll be.
Can we try and think of a male equivalent? So let's say a man is, I'm just trying to think of one, but let's say it's an older man and he's at work, but he has to pee a lot. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So how comfortable is he going to be to say, excuse me, I need to pee again? Okay. I know it's not the same thing, but it's like, it's really interesting about what is, because I had said to the person, you know, see other women of your age group, just start a little kind of chat on an internal thing. There might be a woman on a different floor who's also going through it, and just like have somewhere you can take it during the day.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe somewhere in the workplace where someone else in the workplace
understands.
Understands.
Yeah.
And just so that you can do that, because I don't want to always reveal, you know, I don't bring much personal stuff to my work meetings, because I feel they should be separate. So, but it's very interesting. It's like, it's a really tough one, because it's been discussed a lot about how much should we make allowances for that, and should you then, and then to what extent those would you have time off work sick?
Yeah, and how it impacts people's.
But I'm interested to know, like, would you have time off work sick?
I think if it was really effective.
I think if there were,
because it is, there's an element to perimenopause, which is mental health.
Yeah, huge.
And for mental health, there is it's far more acceptable now, thank God, that if you're having a bad mental health day, you can take a mental health day.
Yeah.
But do you think that should go in the same bucket?
I think if you're really struggling and you can't work because of your symptoms, then that is a reason to be off for that day.
And do you have patients who feel that?
I would have patients who feel that, but I would always say to them, why are you feeling like that? What can we do differently? Because often there is that fear that we were talking about before about HRT, or even, you know, or looking at their lifestyle, reducing their alcohol. There are other things. You don't have to. I think women put up with a lot of symptoms, so they don't have to.
So but because that's the crux of it, all right? It's like we that is the big conversation happening, but how about treating it?
Yeah.
So I think it's like, if you're feeling that, are you treating it properly? Are you getting the help you need? Because ultimately, as the three of us know, you needn't feel like that. And then what other things do you think are crucial? Because there's certain things I think are crucial that support the hormones, and then there's kind of supplementary, which could be a nice add-on. So what is also crucial?
Crucial is looking at alcohol, I think.
Yeah.
I think looking at your diet, making sure you have a good, healthy, nutritious, balanced diet. Exercise as well, and I think often when you're busy that goes way down the to-do list, doesn't it? But I think looking at exercise, strength bearing exercise.
Can we talk about the specifics? Because I think that many women who ran think I'll just continue running, and I think one thing I have learned is you've got to do strength training. It's like muscles are going, you know, the laxity is there, and running first of all is like the elasticity and the collagen has gone so much that that's really everything is going to, like, the knees will wobble more. I mean, it's very difficult if you've been a runner and that's given you the endorphins that you get from running, and then to say to somebody, actually, you've got to do a bit of this.
Yeah, you need to add in a bit of strength
Yeah,
training. See,
yeah.
the muscle mass loss that you get in menopause is hugely significant. So doing resistance training is incredibly important to protect your bones and to improve your kind of quality of life as you get older.
And test against osteoporosis.
Yeah.
Makes you feel better.
It does make you feel better.
Okay, so the right exercise, I'm going to say, because lovely hatha yoga or running, you've got to build up the muscle tone again, or not let it waste away. So it supports the joints. Love that, because I only really got my head around that last year. I did all different things because I've done them for ages, but somebody really reinforced it to me, and I thought, because when you see it as a vain luxury, you, I think, have a very different approach to it than if you see it as a medical necessity. So I think I switched my focus as to how I looked at it. That if I didn't do it 3 times a week, it was me not looking after myself medically.
You would not take your HRT 3
Yeah,
times
exactly.
a week,
And it's kind of to give it that.
to give it that importance.
I think people need to know that exercise is better for your longevity and your long-term health than any tablet that we can give.
Good to feel. All right, what else do you think is essential?
Sleep, which is difficult, isn't it? Sometimes you can be a really good sleeper and then you struggle with your sleep. But if you've had a good night's sleep, then all of the other things are easier the next day. So the eating well, the exercise. So I think trying to get into a good sleep routine.
I appreciate that everyone is a different age in which they go into sort of perimenopausal state. But if you are in your 40s, what should you be thinking about to be proactive so that you prep yourself and you're just on a roll and it's a seamless transition and you get the help you need really quickly?
I think looking at lifestyle, so looking at your diet. You may have in your 30s grabbed a sandwich or eaten on the hoof. You might need to think about your meal plans a little bit more. Make sure you're having enough fruit, vegetable and good food. Think about your exercise. You know, we've talked about running may be something that you've loved for your whole life, but you might want to think about introducing strength training in order to protect your bones against osteoporosis, and also managing stress levels, not going, full on at work, planning your week, trying to get in a good sleep routine.
And I think educating yourself about the symptoms of
I think so.
perimenopause.
So you can kind of be aware that when you're feeling more than a few things, that maybe you should go and get yourself checked and get your hormone levels checked.
And be an advocate for yourself. You know your own body, and if there's something wrong, go and get the help that you deserve and that you need. And there's no need to feel rubbish in your 40s. It's the time where we have the most experience and the most knowledge of our lives, and this should be our time, not this kind of walking through treacle because our hormones aren't right.
But I would equally say there's no need to feel rubbish in your 60s, because I'm 58. And so for me, how I'm feeling now, I'm excited to go into my 60s. I mean, I feel going into my 60s sounds like, oh my God, are you kidding? But I am excited because my mother definitely did not go into her 60s the way I'm going to go into my 60s.
It should be a great time of life, shouldn't it? We just need to empower women to know that it should be a great time of life rather than something that they dread and don't feel good at.
Can I just say thank you so much? It was
Thank
lovely
you so
to
much
talk
for
to
having
you.
us.
And
It's been lovely
I think we've discussed so many different things, and I hope you've enjoyed watching.